he's currently Chief Legal Officer of Paramount Skydance Corporation, where he oversees the company's legal, regulatory, compliance, and public policy matters. He previously served as Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division at the U.S. Department of Justice. Just really quick story. This event would not have happened but for advice that Makan gave me a few years ago. He's a very generous and thoughtful person. And when I was telling him about my business, he said, you got to come out to LA. There's a great market for you there. You have to host an event. And we looked at doing it together when he was at Latham, never got able to do it. And now he's the keynote speaker. And I'm just so happy that he's able to do it. And please give him a warm welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much to the Capital Forum for organizing this. As Teddy mentioned, we chatted about this, and sorry, he never asked for me to sponsor this one. At Latham, we would have been happy to, but the timing of this all came out, and I think it was proven right. There's a market for this, so I'm really grateful for the invitation. And who the hell knew the week before the Oscars that the hottest ticket in Hollywood would be a conference on antitrust, right? But that is a testament to Teddy and the great team of the Capital Forum. He's brought together the great distinguished panel, as you guys have heard this morning and will hear this afternoon. And I've seen a lot of friends and colleagues from the bar. I see many colleagues from my work in the government, and we probably agree on a heck of a lot more than what may appear on the surface. And I know that everybody cares deeply about competition and protecting both consumers and the creative community. I particularly want to recognize the Attorney General of my home state. Many of you know I grew up here. Before I kind of got a little bit lost in Washington, but I've been back the last 4 years, and this is home. Despite people leaving the state, we decided to move back into the state. In fact, I think one of the probably few companies that now, since Paramount, where we moved the headquarters back into California from New York. But I want to recognize and thank General Bonta, as well as my former public sector colleagues, former FTC chair, commissioner, as well as CFPB director Rohit Chopra, and my friend and DOJ colleague and partner in crime on a number of things, Doha Mekki, who you heard earlier this morning, who spoke with Teddy in that fireside chat. For many of you who have paid attention to some of my old speeches at DOJ, I thought I'd throw in an oldie but goodie and use a relevant song for the title of this speech, and I couldn't find a more appropriate one than the great Beatles' Come Together. I wanted to kick off the remarks with a little observation. Antitrust has been intertwined with Hollywood for more than 100 years. Way back in 1912, the Department of Justice sued to break up the motion pictures patents company, the so-called Edison Trust back then. Studio deals, TV station deals, music licensing, and movie theater deals have been a regular diet for the great lawyers and economists of the Antitrust Division for many years. In fact, if I can put in a plug for our friends at Netflix, you guys can learn a lot about the history of the harms of the original motion pictures company cartel by watching the miniseries called Titans, which is on Netflix's SVOD service. And it's narrated by none other than Paramount's founder, Adolf Zukor. So it's a great series. If I could put in a plug to give them more engagement, but it's one which I'm a huge fan of as well, and have enjoyed watching it. As some of you know, we had a great focus on right-sizing the antitrust, in the enforcement of antitrust during my tenure at DOJ. One of my first undertakings as the Assistant Attorney General was to bring media telecom, and entertainment enforcement together in one section so that we could have a single group of attorneys with expertise and focus on these industries. Believe it or not, it took a lot of negotiation amongst the different folks because music was in one section, telecom was in another, motion pictures was yet in another, and one of the good government things that nobody probably paid attention to was actually to do that and bring them all together. We also embarked on a project to review and terminate old consent decrees, some of which dated back 100 years and were harming competition and innovation rather than advancing it. Among these decrees were reviewed were the two that have regulated music licensing for over 80 years, and the ones that were regulating theatrical distribution for nearly 70 years. We successfully moved to terminate those old so-called Paramount decrees, I get the irony, which had regulated the studio theater relationships for decades despite dramatic changes in the industry and by most experts' observations actually led to a downturn in production. The original purpose of the decrees had long since been satisfied. They were settled, I think, 1952, and their continued existence actually harmed innovation by prohibiting practices that were allowed in virtually all other industries. One of the many curious consequences of those decrees was that for more than a decade, whenever a studio wanted to build a new movie theater or a chain wanted to build a new movie theater, it actually had to petition a judge in New York for permission. And the Department of Justice was a party to that matter. Or if a studio wanted to offer a consumer who bought a ticket to see one movie a free ticket to see another movie, it was prohibited by these consent decrees with the DOJ. Go figure how that benefited either actors and labor or the consumer. Thankfully, after studying these, having public comment and petitioning a judge in Southern District of New York, we were able to terminate those decrees and terminate hundreds of decrees and remove the harmful effects in the marketplace. Just as Washington has long taken an interest in Hollywood, Hollywood has taken an interest in Washington. Seeing a lot of great friends here from DC, I won't repeat what the legendary former CEO of the Motion Pictures Association of America and my late friend and mentor to me, Jack Valenti, said about the relationship between Hollywood and DC, but you can Google that. Movies touching on antitrust themes include Tucker, the Man in His Dreams. I've never seen it. The Aviator, great movie, and The Informant, pretty good movie, to name just a few. And those TV or streaming series based on Washington included The West Wing, MRC's and Netflix's House of Cards, which really led to Netflix's the originals, and of course HBO's The Veep. Again, just to name a few. But there seems to be a fascination between the two cities. So let's talk about the future of Hollywood with all that in mind. After all, that's Teddy's title for this. To begin with, I'd like to briefly mention and contrast the two deals that were on the table to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery over the past few months. And certainly while this conference was being planned during that time, and who knew the way it turned out. I'll begin with our friends at Netflix. Netflix was a streaming and technology pioneer. It was an innovator that started out offering consumers the most user-friendly product, and they didn't, most user-friendly product and service, products that they didn't have from their video offerings, through their cable offerings or otherwise. And it was a bargain for consumers. Consumers can sit and binge and have access to many past shows that, ironically, the studios licensed to them to do. But then it grew and gained market power. as innovators do and should. And then they became a dominant force in the industry in their core business, subscription video on demand. They should be congratulated for that, and I think have been the envy of the Hollywood throughout. Then, as sometimes they do with market power and big tech, things begin to change. There were business practices and otherwise, and I think given their existing market power, we can all agree that Netflix's acquisition of Warner Brothers would have had serious consequences for the future of Hollywood. I've said publicly that I didn't believe that the proposed takeover of Warner Brothers studios and streaming assets could have passed muster under established antitrust laws here or abroad. Now, how does that compare with the proposed Paramount acquisition of Warner Brothers? It's night and day. First, a combination of Paramount and Warner Brothers does not create any market power in any facet of the business. This is true in terms of studios, streaming, or the fast declining linear cable networks, you name it. In fact, as I will discuss, it is actually a pro-competitive deal that will benefit the creative community, labor, and consumers across the world. Second, unlike alternative transactions, a Paramount deal is all about increasing the amount of content, which will be a boon for creatives and consumers. This point goes to the core of how competition works in today's media ecosystem. Common sense tells us that not all content is alike. A short-form user-generated content shot through an iPhone does not meaningfully compete against quality scripted produced movies and series. I've thought about evolving my thinking to agree with some that TikTok and YouTube user-generated content are in the market definition, but I've resisted that. Nor do we need to do that and resort to psychedelic antitrust to approve our deal. Consumers want to see great movies, and they will go to the theater for the full, amazing theatrical experience: popcorn, surround sound, and the excitement of sharing a journey with other moviegoers. Consumers also want to see the best sports event, news coverage, and shows, and they value a compelling broadcast of cable offerings that carries through the promise. They also want to have access to the breadth and depth of content they crave and will subscribe to a streaming platform that provides it. Put simply, we want our customers to come back again and again. We want customers in theaters, and critically, we want customers to spend time on our streaming platform. To compete most effectively against highly scaled streaming big tech platforms requires significant investment in quality content. The transaction with Warner Brothers will allow us to do that. We get to scale and compete vigorously with more content in order to gain more subscribers. The reverse just doesn't work. Which is why Paramount recently added an additional $1.5 billion to its Paramount Plus content budget, boosting the amount of quality programming we offer to attract viewers. This includes 11 new original series greenlit just since closing the Paramount deal last August. It is also why Paramount Skydance's chairman and CEO David Ellison has committed to making a substantial 30 movies per year post-closing, at least 15 from Paramount and also 15 from Warner Brothers Studios. Consumers hunger for that type of content, both in the theaters and when those films eventually reach a streaming platform downstream. Given this context, Paramount's transaction with Warner's is an opportunity to expand output, to grow the number of movies, shows, and other content we are offering to the consumer. The proof is in what our studio has already done since closing the Paramount transaction. In the short time since Paramount and Skydance merged, we have greenlit 11 films, doubling the size of our film slate from 8 to 16 this year. And as mentioned, already $1.5 billion to the Paramount Plus content budget. This is all in service of giving consumers what they want and actually competing with our competitors to gain more market share, which is essential to competing in this new era of the entertainment industry, future of Hollywood. Third, by competing vigorously to increase our content, the deal will be a huge win for the creative community, resulting in more job opportunities. An average movie that Paramount or Warner Brothers produces employs several hundred crew members from IATSE, a large number of Teamsters members, many members of both the WGA, DGA, to say nothing of the dozens of SAG-AFTRA members on the screen. Paramount and Warner Brothers moved from 20 combined, released in 25, to the 30 or more that will be coming post-transaction, will translate into hundreds, if not thousands, of additional union jobs within the industry. And by the way, this new healthy competitive environment will also force other competitors to more vigorously innovate and compete. That is why our transaction is actually pro-competitive. I also want to underscore recent comments from David Ellison that the synergies from this transaction will come largely from consolidation of tech stacks, combination of the company's procurement efforts, coordination of marketing efforts, and a combination of back office systems. Fourth, we believe the transaction with Warner Brothers will help spark a renaissance for movie theaters. Movie theaters have struggled in recent years, especially in the wake of COVID. Paramount has long been a proponent of the value of the theatrical experience. David has described the movie-going experience as one that is passed down from generation to generation. While many analysts perceive the so-called Netflix effect as inevitable, we have repeatedly defied conventional wisdom by embracing theatrical releases. Maverick is not just a famous call sign. It is David, and hence our company's philosophy. Paramount believes the best way to maximize the potential of a film is to excite the audiences and the consumer with a marketing campaign, release the movie in theaters for at least 45 days or longer, and then start the movie on the path towards streaming. This approach gives movies more permanence in popular culture, drives demand, and ultimately makes them more valuable intellectual property. We want our films, these works of art, to age like fine wine, not be binged like cheap beer. Our acquisition of Warner Brothers will ensure that cinemas all across the world have more people coming to watch movies on the big screen, and will be great for not only the cinemas, the consumers who demand that, but also those who work in these great works of art. And finally, this deal is a big win for Los Angeles, for California, and for all communities that embrace filmmaking. General Bonta talked about the various communities and states that have been competing with California to embrace filmmaking, whether that's Louisiana, Michigan, Georgia, and others. Competition is good amongst the states as well. It'll be a boost to keeping California and America the entertainment capital of the world. As I mentioned, part of the thesis of the deal is to make more movies and more shows. Many of those will be made here in Los Angeles, hopefully, filling the capacities we have at places like the Paramount lot or the Warner Brothers lot. David has publicly confirmed that we do not plan to sell these iconic properties. Instead, they will serve as the foundation for our content creation and innovation renaissance. I know and very much respect the process we still need to go through and answer the important questions states' attorneys generals, foreign competition regulators, and others may still have about the effects of our merger. I appreciate their attention and applaud them for their interest in protecting consumers through the enforcement of the antitrust laws. I am proud that we engage constructively, openly, and early with enforcers at all levels of the government in the United States, as well as abroad, as well as all of the guilds and the labor unions proactively early on. We have presented the needed evidence to prove the benefits of the transaction, and I can also pledge today that we will not be closing this transaction for at least another 60 days from today. Not the 30 days that normally is needed for the initial review of an HSR merger filing, and we'll be continuing to engage in good faith with all enforcers to provide them the information they need. I'm a firm believer in the benefits of the antitrust of antitrust law enforcement. Don't take my word for it. Look at my track record in both private and the public sectors. Whether it was fighting against monopolies, going back to 1998, filing the first criminal prosecutions in labor antitrust markets with the help of my colleague Doha, and advancing important civil antitrust enforcement in the labor markets, including against no-poach agreements that she mentioned, and in collegiate sports, which is a topic, again. I firmly believe that once these reviews are completed, all competition enforcers will be convinced that our transaction not only lacks anti-competitive effects, but it is, in fact, pro-competitive, just as industry participants have recognized and commented. Once those reviews are completed, they will be as excited about the future of Hollywood as a result of this merger as we are at Paramount. You may have noticed, as I noted earlier, that the title of these remarks is Come Together. As you can see, this is one where, as Lennon wrote, 1 and 1 is 3. All right? I took a little Hollywood liberty with the phrase of that liberty, of those lyrics, but it is to prove my point. There is much hard work ahead, but bringing together Paramount and Warner Brothers presents a unique opportunity at this time in the evolution of Hollywood. It's an opportunity to build a true champion for the creative community, one that can and will bring more stories to life for audiences, support filmmakers and talent with real scale, and compete effectively on the global stage and in the streaming market. Who knows, we may even release another antitrust-themed film or yet another Washington-based streaming series. Thank you again to Teddy, the Capitol Forum staff, for having me, and all the speakers with all the thoughtful comments here. Thank you so much.